Welcome to episode 237 of the Grip Strip Podcast, a first time for everything edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. And as always, I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, man?
Doing great, Phil. Of course, IndyCar, unfortunately, over, but hey, we had a great race in the finale at Nashville this past weekend and saw the crowning of the champion there. So, great race there, and Watkins Glen, wild as ever. F1, pretty interesting there, too. So, ready to get into it.
Yeah, busy weekend last weekend and leading into this weekend in regards to racing. Add the fact that football is back. We're in past week 2 in the NFL season. College football is alive and well early in the season. Plenty of upsets and stuff going on. But yeah, we got IndyCar where Colton Herta gets his first career win. First oval win. And against his longtime rival, Pato O'Ward. Alex Palou gets his third IndyCar championship and 2 in a row. Being the first repeat champion since Dario Franchitti, who used to drive that car, and it still works for Ganassi, of course, living legend. And then you have NASCAR, where Christopher Buescher got his first road course win in the Cup Series over Shane Van Gisbergen after a rare mistake by SVG there, which would have been for his second Cup Series win. And I don't know how many starts, like 8 starts or something like that, or somewhere around there, which would have been pretty insane. But comes up second. And but behind that, there was plenty of craziness, carnage that affected the playoff point standings. And that was that we'll get into, which is big going into the elimination race at Bristol for the night race. Connor Zilisch going yet again and proving why he's one of the best young talents in all of motorsports in his debut for Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series. After winning the ARCA race the day before, goes out, wins pole, wins his Xfinity debut, becoming the second youngest winner ever in the history of the Xfinity Series. Pizza face Joey Logano, once upon a time when he was a young gun, was the all-time youngest driver. So that is pretty insane for Connor Zilisch to go and do that. The amount of praise and love that he was getting from all different avenues. I throw back because Shea Holbrook ran him in a MX5 Cup, last year, and to think that now, he's won multiple sports car IMSA races, and he's won in the Xfinity Series this year. He's one of the best young talents in the sport, and I was saying on the socials on Twitter that he's basically Justin Marks' franchise, and this is why. So we'll get into his performance and all the stuff that went on, especially in overtime, that affected the point standings heading into the Bristol night race, where they will have their regular season finale. In F1, Oscar Piastri beat Charles Leclerc for his second career Formula One win. This one didn't have anywhere near as much craziness or drama as Hungary. Though the craziness and drama happened behind him, because after those two guys, you had Sergio Perez, who was actually going to get a podium, or might have had a podium. Carlos Sainz and him were racing, and somehow or another got together, wrecked, and left with nothing, which then gave Woody a random podium, his first podium since he won at Austria because of fish lips and Lando running into each other. Speaking of fish lips, he had one of his worst weekends in a long, long time. Basically was nowhere the whole entire time, which is great for most of us, but for his orange fan base or whatever. I'm sure they weren't happy about it. This is on the heels of the Adrian Newey announcement that he's leaving to go and become a minority partner and be a part of the design team at Aston Stroll F1. Then you have Jonathan Wheatley, who's been there for almost 2 decades. He's going over to run Sauber Audi. So there's a lot going on there. We'll get into the race results and the points. Williams getting a double point score, which is huge for their constructors standings. But I mean, that also goes into IndyCar. We'll talk about leader circle and the final point standings there. We'll get in NFL Week 2 and our fantasy updates. The roundup is got F2, F1 Academy, WEC, IMSA, NHRA, Indy Next, Supercars, MotoGP, Moto2, and World Superbikes before we preview Singapore for Formula One and the triple header at Bristol with the trucks on Thursday, Xfinity on Friday, and of course the night race on Bristol night race on Saturday for Cup, and will be a playoff closer for the Xfinity Series, the second race in the first round for the Truck Series, and the first round finisher for the Cup Series. We'll need a diagram for that here later, but whatever. Josh will let us know all things going on iRacing gaming in a sim segment, and then we'll call it a day. But first, we'll go to Colton Herta, who, with his drive on Sunday at Nashville, the last IndyCar race that'll be on NBC, first of hopefully many finales at Nashville. He had one of the better race cars. He had to come from further back, but he went out there and won the race. He had fresher tires late in the race and was able to overtake Pato O'Ward. He handled the traffic better. He just seemed to be in a different zone this past weekend. It kind of fits with Colton Herta. It seems like anywhere he calls a home, it's almost like Martin Truex Jr. syndrome, where anywhere that Colton Herta has a home or has been, can say is a home track, he wins at it. So now Nashville Super Speedway, he can add to that. Yes, he probably should have won the first 2 editions of the Nashville Street Course race, but wrecked out of both of them. But he goes and gets his first career oval victory at Nashville Super Speedway, which was a great performance by him. And I think, they're talking about it, Kirk Cavan talked about it on the website, my IndyCar website, about how it might be a precursor to Colton Herta's a possible championship run for 2025. That's the vision. What? I don't know. Clips on. Okay, yeah. So we'll go and talk all about that. I mean, and of course in Alex Palou didn't have. It wasn't straightforward, but it became straightforward. At willpower, qualified much better than Palou. Palou also had an engine penalty, so he was buried. But he made up a lot of positions early on in the race, Palou. One of his better kind of like early parts of a race on an oval, which kind of gives hope towards, which is probably bad for the series and for all the other drivers in the series, but it's hope for him that he is picking up the confidence on ovals, because that's really the last frontier for him. He's been close at Indy. He's been close at some of these races. If he goes out there and he's able to conquer ovals, then we're going to have a new version of Scott Dixon, I think, on Scott Dixon's team, no less. I mean, which I guess you could take it whichever angle you want to go with. Josh. I mean, Colton Herta going out there getting that victory was huge for him, huge for Andretti. It gets Colton Herta second in points. It gives him a super license for whatever it's worth. First oval victory for Andretti since Alexander Rossi's win at Pocono in 2018. That's pretty crazy. So you had Colton Herta over Pato O'Ward. Joseph Newgarden finished third. Kyle Kirkwood started on pole, finished fourth. Scott McLaughlin from 18th finished fifth. Root Beer Floathead was sixth. Marcus Armstrong, in what might be his last IndyCar race, finished seventh. Same for Linus Lundqvist, who won Rookie of the Year, finished eighth. And David Malukas in his last race for Meyer Shank finished ninth. Connor Daly, first car, one lap down, finished 10th. Helped Junkos Hollinger get into the 24 for the leader circle after another solid performance. Alex Palou finishes one lap down in 11th. So that's those two guys. I mean, Scott Dixon finished 2 laps down in 17th. I'm trying to see. Yeah, Will Power ended up 8 laps down in 24th. Marcus Ericsson crashed out of the race yet again. Felix Rosenqvist, after announcing a multi-year extension, crashed out early, or relatively early. Catherine Legg had some sort of issue. I mean, she had issues basically the whole weekend. Yeah, so those are the 4 that had more major problems. Graham Rahal and Kiffin Simpson were the last 2 cars on the racetrack that are kind of at some sort of pace. The Rahal Letterman Lanigan team on the heels of the FBI showing up to their headquarters today on Wednesday, Wednesday the 18th, go and have terrible performances on ovals to end the season, and we don't know what their driver situation is going to be next year outside of Graham Rahal, who hasn't won a race in, I don't know, like 6 years or something, 7 years, some crap like that. It's been a long time for Graham winning a race. We don't know if Pietro Fittipaldi's coming back. We know that Lundgaard's going over to McLaren to drive the 7 car. So I don't know if Hy-Vee is still there, so that could dictate who they hire. So there's a lot going on there, a lot of craziness. But I guess, Josh, whichever angle you want to go with first, I mean, whether it's the Colton Herta and setting himself up possibly for an IndyCar championship run next year, or the fact that Alex Palou is just one of the best, young drivers that we've had in recent memory in IndyCar, to be a 3-time champion in 4 years. I mean, even Dixon didn't do that. So it tells you how good he has been. He may not be great with contracts and following them or going and honoring them, but he definitely can sure drive a race car.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to take this, but I think you can kind of combine both of those angles and say, well, Colton Herta might be positioning himself to be a contender next year for the title, but he's going to run into the brick wall known as Alex Palou. And Alex Palou, I mean, he's so good right now that honestly, he's probably the early favorite to get a 4th title next year, which 3 in a row, that's, I don't know if that's ever been done before in IndyCar. So, and obviously that'd probably be the first time again for him to do that. So, shows how well of a driver he is in this series and all the things that he can do for Ganassi and in IndyCar. And maybe Scott Dixon has won his last title as well. Maybe that certainly has to be a factor there. But Dixon or Palou, it didn't finish in the top 10, finished a lap down, but it was good enough to win the championship. Of course, Will Power eliminated early, effectively by the lap build issue there. So, Palou, I mean, he did well enough on ovals this year. We saw what he was able to do at Iowa. We saw, what he was able to do at Gateway. Had the issue at Milwaukee, which kind of opened back the championship up, but then it turned out to be not as bad because Will Power couldn't capitalize with his mistake. So we've seen a lot of improvement. So he's able to put it all together. He might go for a 4th title next year. And by the way, hasn't won the Indianapolis 500 yet. Maybe he could win, could break the, jinx that's currently right now with Indy 500 winners, not winning the championship in the same year for a few years now. So that, maybe that happens. And, he came close a couple of years ago, back in 2021, of course, in that great finish with Elio Castroneves. But certainly that's a possibility. But Colton Herta, of course, seemed like for the last couple of years he's been not having the best results, but this year has certainly turned it around. Not quite around enough to be a legitimate championship contender, but certainly enough where we saw him get a couple of wins this year in IndyCar and get a win on an oval for the first time. Won on a street course in Toronto, grabbed a couple of poles as well, and was generally competitive throughout the year. So for him, big result for him to be able to get this win on an oval, and shows what they've been able to do throughout the year on ovals. And go back to the Indianapolis 500, they had probably one of the best cars that day, but obviously they got caught up in a crash, and then they had the issue of taking it back to the garage, and maybe they shouldn't have, and then ended up losing laps there. But Colton, of course, maybe if that didn't happen, could have been a lot closer in this championship fight. But he's been having a great year other than that. So maybe next year, as Andretti continues to improve, maybe they're a lot closer to Ganassi. We'll see. But yeah, for both of them, I mean, I think it's good for the series. Both two young drivers that are certainly capable of being in F1. We've seen Palou, of course, the contract deal with McLaren, with the potential F1 ride there kind of being the catalyst for him reneging on that contract, and Colton getting the super license, like you said, being eligible for that. Finally, after the debate, maybe he goes to F1 if they ever figure out the deal with Andretti F1, maybe so. But right now, certainly a contender in IndyCar. So, that was a daring finish there at the end by Colton Herta, passing Pato O'Ward, of course. Stingray Robb opening the opportunity for that to happen, with him being off the pace relatively on the low side, and forcing Pato O'Ward to go high, and Colton able to take advantage of that and then pass Pato there on the inside with less than 5 laps to go. So yeah, pretty exciting finish there, and made for great racing overall throughout the weekend. We saw a lot of battles throughout the race, up front and in the middle of the field there, and interesting because there was some, I guess, uncertainty with the race because they had the different tire situation with bringing the alternates on an oval, which normally we don't see, bringing the high downforce package onto an oval as big as Nashville, greater than it's a mile and a third. So we thought maybe they would have, people were thinking maybe they should bring the super speedway package there, but or like a hybrid package of the super speedway package and the high downforce one, but they brought the short oval road course downforce package there, and honestly made for great racing throughout. So I think the only thing that could made it that race better if it was at night, which they did night practice there, of course, and being able to see that. So that would have been nice, but nonetheless, still good finale. And I think the other thing we had to mention about Colton is that, they actually had the incident in practice where they crashed after running into that bump in the middle of turn 3 and 4. So great overcoming that, all things considering, and then coming out with the win. So definitely, that's a good way to cap the weekend and cap the year for them. And yeah, we'll see what they can do next year. And for Will Power, of course, Will Power had an opportunity this past weekend to be able to challenge Alex Palou, and never really had that opportunity. The seatbelt issue, which I think that's a little bit surprising because Team Penske, they pride themselves on being the best prepared team in the sport, and I feel like that's kind of like a quality control issue that could have happened. I mean, we've seen that happen before. Penske, AJ Allmendinger, 2013 Indianapolis 500, but I think that's like for the championship. Definitely Will Power. He's a guy that you feel like something that they wouldn't miss that, but evidently it did happen, and that led to part of his downfall in this race, although it was definitely going to be a pretty big challenge for him to be able to contend and potentially win this championship. So that kind of sealed the drama early for the championship and everything, but the race still fairly entertaining throughout.
Yeah, and it also proves why Indy cars need to be at more ovals. It proves that with somebody who actually cares about promoting the series, like Scott Borchetta, what can happen with promoting a race, having a good crowd, a really nice crowd at Nashville Super Speedway. There's a lot of positives in that sense that IndyCar can actually use in after what has been a really bad last 12 months for IndyCar racing, outside of whatever, if they taking the W of getting every race on network television next year. I mean, I guess that, yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, you're having a great championship battle. You have the person who runs the series is completely clueless and doesn't understand the drivers. They don't promote the series well, or the drivers aren't promoted very well, at least not yet, and hasn't been for decades. You had a great announced team, or at least you had a couple of guys that were really good, and Townsend Bell. And you had solid pit road people, but we don't know who's going to be on their telecast for Fox. So that I find to be kind of interesting. That, I mean, granted, they don't race again until March, so you have 6 months essentially, January, February, 5.5 months before they actually go and race at St. Pete to start the year. You have a big gap early in the season also in the schedule before they really get going too. But there are more teams. There's going to be more teams on the grid next year with Prema coming over. The leaders circle was very competitive there late in the season with Colton Herta. Connor Daly going out and getting Juncos Hollander back in. The 66 was able, I think, to stay in. I'm trying to find it. It's hard to find those results. In general, they make it pretty difficult to find it, but could outperform at least and Milwaukee's for it also is, yes, that's part of the thing with the 41 for 18. So Jack Harvey wasn't, and the 18 car didn't make it. I'm sure the 51 didn't make it either. After there's perhaps a different carpenters were just in car with Rasmussen. No, okay, yeah. So the 20 made it. So that was in part because he put Ed Carpenter made a decision to actually put Christian Rasmussen in the car. So, I mean, I guess that's the time. I mean, they don't bother to show the owner's points like they do in NASCAR, which is annoying. But that's whatever, I guess. I did say, or we've been thinking that Colton did have the super license based on the regulations. He's a point short. So who knows? Maybe one of these F1 teams use it as an opportunity for a young driver to go and put him in and test a car or do whatever. And that might get him the point he needs. There's other things you'd have to do to be fully eligible for a super license, but basically he's there. So his performances over the last 4 years put him in the mix to have that opportunity. So after what has been a difficult time, or what has been a difficult period for Colton the last couple of years, he has a lot of momentum going for him, and Andretti Autosport has a lot of momentum going for them. So that's a 41. Okay, so yeah, that's basically what it is. It's Ed Carpenter's team. The 20 got in at the expense of Stingray Robb in the 41, which is part of the reason why he's probably, unless he goes back to Dale Coyne, probably out of IndyCar, or if he goes to Prema, who knows? I don't think he is going to Prema, though, because I think they're going to get another F2 driver that they used to have. So that's the leader circle. Basically, everyone that you think of outside of the Dale Coyne cars and the 41, which will have David Malukas, I think, unless they renumber the car, he'll bring his dad's money to the table to help with that. And they're going to be a team to look at for sure, because when you look at the driver points, Root Beer Floathead got AJ Foyt Racing into the top 10. He's the first driver at AJ Foyt to finish in the top 10 in points since Aaron Dare, as the great AJ Foyt called him, Ayrton Dare, in 2002. So that tells you how long it's 22 years ago. Root Beer Floathead, I think, was a baby, or very, very young. So that 2002 is when Tony won his first Cup title. 2002, the freaking Angels won the World Series over the San Francisco Giants. I'm trying to think who the hell won the Super Bowl in 2002. I think that was the Brady one.
The Brady
2002 season.
Yeah, the 2002 season, Tampa Bay won over the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah. That was really weird. That was a weird year. That was John Gruden was doing every call as Rich Gannon, and literally he knew every call that Rich Gannon was going to do, to the point where Tampa Bay, Brad Johnson as the quarterback. Brad, I mean, it didn't really matter what Tampa Bay did, because Oakland was god awful that game. So John Gruden won his Super Bowl, and even though he runs the Fired Football Coaches of America, he can go around and still say he has a chip, in large part because of Tony Dungy's work, but that's beside the point. So yeah, that was a weird year back then. So Root Beer Floathead gets in the top 10. Go and move over. I had the points. Yeah. Palou with 544 points wins a championship by 31 over Colton Herta. Scott McLaughlin finishes third, 8 points behind Herta. Will Power in the end falls 15 points short of second place there, 16. Pato O'Ward gets 3 wins this year, finishes fifth by 4 points over Scott Dixon. Kyle Kirkwood, 7th. Joseph Newgarden won his second consecutive Indianapolis 500. And what was it? Gateway, right? And to his 2 wins in a year, that was definitely not one of his best otherwise. Definitely struggled, had a lot of controversy with the cheating scandal, which has not really been fleshed out, but Penske runs a series, so it probably never will be. Root Beer Float Head finishes a point ahead of Alexander Rossi to finish 9th. And Rossi in his last race for our McLaren finishes 10th. Then just outside of the top 10, it was a pretty interesting battle, very close points situation. 5 drivers, Lundgaard, Rosenqvist, VK, Armstrong, Ericsson. And then Linus Lundqvist winning Rookie of the Year in 16th in points. So, yeah, there was that. I'm trying to see, of the full-timers, Stingray Robb actually beat Kiffin Simpson but he should have, honestly. He's been in the series for a year, but only finished a point behind Pietro Fittipaldi. So, yeah, that's some pretty terrible performing there. So that's the driver points. I mentioned the owner points. In terms of the news, recent news coming out, Prema has signed Callum Ilott to drive for one of their cars next year, which isn't that surprising based on having the experience that he had with Prema winning in Formula 3. So, and he's won in WEC this year. So, I mean, he's definitely a top driver, somebody that if he had money, I think he probably would have been in Formula 1. So we'll see what he's able to do with this team, Prema team, next year. We don't know who the other driver is going to be, but, there's a possibility of Teddy Porkchops, Teo Porcher, which would mean an all cast-off lineup from McLaren there, but there's other options as well that could come in because of the budgets and all that. And then we still have other rides, like I mentioned, that have to be decided. Okay, let's move forward to the Cup Series at Watkins Glen. The Go Bowling at the Glen. Probably one of my favorite sponsors for any race all year. There was plenty of bowling late in the race, or during the race because of how many people got hit. In the end, though, Shane Van Gisbergen missed a 10-pin in the bus stop and opened the door for Christopher Buescher to get his first road course win in the Cup Series. Missed the playoffs, Chris Buescher, but in the end gets a much-needed victory, his first victory in over a year. In overtime, beats Shane Van Gisbergen. Carson Hocevar gets his best career finish in third. Ross Chastain won the pole, led the most laps in the race, won a stage, finished fourth. And Zane Smith finished fifth. So 2 Spire cars in the top 5. Then you have the Trackhouse / Colleague car, 2 Trackhouse Colleague cars. Then you have Chase Briscoe as the best playoff finisher in 6th, and what I think is going to be the last race with him with highpoint.com. Big props to them and the Medinborough family to back him a few years ago. If it wasn't for them and some other people along the way, Chase Briscoe, we may not know anything, but Chase Briscoe might be in ARCA or might not be driving anywhere. He might still be driving sprints or something. It would be something else. It wouldn't be in NASCAR. So thankful to those to the Edinburghs for that. Michael McDowell, Corey LaJoie, who caused a wreck to start the race, Ryan Preece, and Gumby Cindric round out the top 10. So those are only 2 playoff drivers finishing the top 10. Noah Gragson, who we'll talk about in a little while, finished 11th. And then 4 playoff drivers in a row, and 7 in a gaggle of drivers from 12th to 20th. Larson, Suarez, Bell, Logano, who had won, of course, last week. Todd Gilliland, another top 20. Darrell Walsh Jr. gets a top 20. Alex Bowman, William Clyde Elliott the second, and then Martin Truex Jr., who won stage 1 and was up front for a good amount of the day, but ended up not being there late. In terms of drivers outside of the top 20, Keebler Gibbs was 22nd, Dennis Hamlin 23rd after a wreck, Harrison Burton 24th, Brad Keselowski, who was involved in multiple incidents, 26th, Tyler Reddick 27th, William Byron was 34th, 2 laps down. Ryan Blaney was knocked out in that first lap incident. I think it was Kyle Busch was involved in that one. It was after he got turned by LaJoie. Blaney was pissed because they didn't allow the 12 to go and be repaired, or at least get on the damaged vehicle policy, because they make up the rules as they go along, it seems like, with that. But he's still inside the playoff right now. AJ Allmendinger broke a transmission 6 laps into the race. Wow, that's crazy. So then the race sponsor's car fell out. Both of the Go Bowling cars this weekend had rough races. Juan Pablo Montoya made his first appearance in a decade in a Cup car. Started 34th, finished 32nd, a lap down. But I think he probably had a little better pace than that. Strategy, things going on probably didn't help him either, but you haven't been in a Cup car in a while. It's a hard ask to jump in, especially at a track like Watkins Glen, even though Juan Pablo Montoya has won there before. So yeah, we go into Buescher going and getting a victory and beating SVG, which is pretty sporty, honestly. You picked SVG to, or no, I picked SVG to win. You picked Larson. Our wild cards both shit the bed. And so, I mean, SVG was up there. He had put himself in a position to win it. And he made a rare mistake to go and give it away. But in the end, Buescher had to kind of drive through him to get it. And then he was able to hold on there late. So for Buescher, who misses the playoffs, who was so close multiple times to winning a race in the regular season, to go out and get that victory now is a good start towards 2025 and getting back into the playoffs for one of the better, more underrated drivers in the series. But it's not been, he was nowhere near as consistent this year, and that's part of the reason why he's looking on the outside and his teammate Brad Keselowski is in. But right now, Brad Keselowski's in trouble to stay in the playoffs. So you have the good and the bad for RFK. You have the good and the bad for a lot of these teams. I mean, what were your takeaways, Josh, on Chris Buescher's win and, the performance SVG, which isn't that surprising when you consider how good he is, but being at a racetrack where I think was an equalizer, everyone said was an equalizer. Oh, how is SVG going to compete against these teams who have all this data and all that? I think he did pretty well. And he is super dangerous for the playoffs next year, because similar to what he's done in Xfinity, he just has to win once and he's in the playoffs. So Trackhouse Racing is trying to go and put their momentum towards 2025. You saw Ross Chastain had one of his best races of the year. You know, Suarez was around, and you had SVG finish second. So that's the one angle, but Christopher Buescher, of course, got the win.
Yeah, Chris Buescher winning the race there. I think really how that happened, if you look at the final lap there, going into the bus stop, the renewed chicane there with the new curbing style that they had going into the chicane bus stop there, it looked like on camera that SVG barely brushed the wall or the inner barrier there going into that bus stop. And I wonder if that upset the car enough to where it got him loose in the middle of the bus stop. And that's kind of what led to him overcooking the corner there, because he got loose and lost the car there. And then that opened the door for Chris Buescher to bump him there going into the carousel. So I really think that's what happened. And that's, maybe he really did overcook the corner, just brake too hard or locked up the brake, but that's what it looked like to me. So it's still, regardless, is a rare mistake by SVG there, and shows that he's not as invincible as we thought he was, but still, like you said, one is capable of winning at least one road course race, and that'll qualify, more than likely will qualify him for the playoffs next year. So for SVG, it's a learning experience, another thing for him to learn about in Cup, but also for Chris Buescher, finally getting a win sticker after having two opportunities earlier in the year deny an opportunity. So now he gets a win finally, and for him it's a good opportunity to get a win at Watkins Glen. So obviously Chris Buescher underrated at road courses. We've seen him perform well in the past and seen him have good finishes. Remember, he finished pretty good last year in Sonoma, finishing in third place there. So he knows how to get around on road courses. And remember, his first career win on road courses at Xfinity in Mid-Ohio back in 2014. So he's been under the radar, but we probably need to, obviously, I think now consider him a lot more on road courses. So he's done a really good job, and showing now that both two RFK cars, the 6 and the 17, both getting a win, kind of showing the continued turnaround in performance for that team. So finally getting a win there. Unfortunately, not in the playoffs, and so this is basically just playing spoiler, which is crazy because he's got a 14th place average finish, which tied for Ross Chastain for third in average finish for all full-time drivers in the Cup Series. So that's crazy that they're both not in the playoffs, but they, in terms of average finish, have performed higher than most of the playoff drivers. So, and only Chase Elliott and Tyler Reddick have a better average finish there. So which is crazy to me, but just the way that the year has fallen, when the results that they had kind of led to this moment. And of course, that 1/1000th of a second for Chris Buescher, would really like that, have that back. But hey, a good win against one of the best road course racers currently right now in SVG. That's a pretty big get for Chris Buescher there. And SVG, of course, that was actually pretty good bump there that he gave to Buescher there on the final restart. Able to didn't clean him out. He just kind of laid the bumper right to him, just enough to tap him and get him upset the car in the first turn there on the restart, and then able to go on the inside and take the lead and really thought that he was going to be the guy winning that race. But of course, like I said, what ended up happening there, and SVG given second. So of course, he's not a guy to go out and wreck a guy. We saw what he attempted to do at Coda versus Austin Hill there, and he kind of learned kind of the nuances of trying to get a guy back in stock car racing, and applied that lesson here. Still didn't win, but that's a separate error there that happened. So yeah, we'll see how he does next year in full time in Trackhouse. But yeah, this is definitely another preview of what we'll expect from him next year in the Cup Series. So yeah, this race was definitely wild. I mean, a lot of things happened, and we saw a lot of craziness throughout. Definitely one of the more crazier races we've seen from the playoff era, especially in the elimination round era. And we saw the first highest finisher in this race that was a playoff driver finishing in 6th, which that's pretty crazy in itself, because I don't think they said that's never happened before, where a playoff driver had finished that low. And usually that if the playoff driver didn't win, they finished in 2nd. And so that's the fact that there was 2 drivers that didn't have playoff or not a playoff, but now the whole top 5 didn't compete in the playoffs at all. That's pretty insane. And especially with basically Spire and Trackhouse basically taking the top 5 with RFK. That's a pretty insane finish. And kind of wish that Watkins Glen was in the playoffs next year, but it's out again. So that would be nice if it were, but unfortunately it's not. So that was definitely a crazy race, and kind of leads to, Chase Briscoe finished in 6th. They're the highest finishing a playoff driver there. So yeah, definitely wild there. And then the standings, Daniel Suarez is in 5th, which is insane. Cindric is in 2nd. Alex Bowman is in 3rd, tied for 3rd with Logano. So a lot of shakeups happening here. And of course, like you said, that first lap incident there with the 12, the 11, the 7, once again, causing violence on the track, and somehow getting away with it, finishing in 8th place there for Corey LaJoie. So yeah, that was crazy just seeing how all that happened. I think maybe one thing we'll see on that crash is like Corey LaJoie's caused a ton of incidents this year, and I don't know, I feel like I heard this earlier and I kind of thought of this on my own as well, but maybe it's time for NASCAR to implement kind of like how F1 has their incident point system, where if there's enough incidents, you get banned from a race, or you get disqualified from practice for a thing where you automatically get penalized to the back of the grid or something like that. So NASCAR needs to implement something like that. Probably would be unpopular, but the way that these guys race now, they're going to have to put something like that to kind of punish the drivers for racing too aggressively or not putting themselves in good position there. So I think Corey LaJoie would probably be the biggest defender in that area. So we'll see how that goes. But this is definitely, like you said, with Ryan Blaney finishing last and all these other guys having terrible finishes, definitely shows the volatility that we saw at Watkins Glen there. So obviously a lot was said there, but the race there was definitely one of the better Watkins Glen races that we've seen in quite a while.
Yeah, taking it out and putting in the playoffs, a rare W by the Frances to go and put it there. The fact is it's always a sellout. It's one of the best races on the calendar. It's been there for a long time, obviously, since '86. And they draw, and now they're going back to their regular spot in August. Unfortunately, this would probably be an opportunity where, instead of having like Snoroma earlier in the year, unless it's like right at the start of the year, probably putting them there in a playoff. I wouldn't mind Watkins Glen being there. It separates it. It gives spacing from the 6 hours at the Glen to the Cup race and that weekend. But we'll see what happens as these schedules go on. It proves once again that the Northeast is under utilized. The East Coast, going up or going down a pretty far ways is not represented very well in motorsports, especially in NASCAR and in IndyCar, and NHRA for that matter, which we'll get into later. But the fans come out. It's not just a bias for me because I've lived here my whole life. The fact is, come out for these races, big crowds. If you run a good racetrack and you run a good program, you're gonna draw well. And Watkins Glen's been a draw for decades. Pocono. Even New Hampshire to a point has become a lot better than it used to be. But then they don't really have that many races up here, so they screw the Northeast fans out of races, and then they put multiple races at crappy racetracks. So, that's beside the point. It's a separate tangent for another day. But we go into the point standings. Logano, of course, won at Atlanta. These are 5 points out of the actual lead, the points lead with Christopher Bell. You mentioned this, Josh, with Gumby, Cindric, Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, 3rd through 5th, which is completely insane, considering especially Suarez and Cindric's performances for a good amount of the regular season. They've come good here in the playoffs, which is great timing for them. Tyler Reddick is in 6th. William Clyde Elliott 7th. Ryan Blaney 8th. Kyle Larson 9th. 20 points ahead of the cutoff. 26 ahead of 13th. William Byron in 10th. Chase Briscoe tied with Keebler Gibbs for the last 2 spots in the top 12 right now. They're 6 points ahead of Dennis Hamlin, 12 points ahead of Brad Keselowski. Martin Truex Jr. is minus 14, and then Harrison Burton minus 20. I would basically eliminate him. You don't really have to worry about him unless a second miracle happens. But you have to keep, Hamlin, who's won multiple races with his next-gen car at Bristol, including the most recent one. Brad, who's been great at Bristol over his career, and recently too, and Martin Truex Jr. When you go to a concrete racetrack, there's very few drivers that are better than him. But this has been a really bad year in his retirement year, so who knows? We'll get into it more later, but it's crazy to think that Denny Hamlin, who's been one of the better drivers this whole year, is in a position where essentially he needs to win or perform well throughout the entire race to get into the next round. And it's gonna, right now, 2 Gibbs cars are out and 2 Fords. If things get really crazy, you have a couple Hendrick cars down there with Larson and Byron, who have 7 wins between the 2 of them. So it is definitely a weird year for these playoffs. So we'll see what happens for sure. Win over, so gain ground, key storyline. So we'll get and move forward to mention Connor Zilisch, and it was a great weekend for him in his burgeoning career, going and getting the victory on Saturday at the Mission 200 at the Glen. And that's just insane to think that he went out on debut and won his won the race, but the way he performed, it's not like it's all that surprising, really. He was basically, and what also is crazy is he had never driven an Xfinity car before. Like, I think the only driving he had done is simulator work. So that was the first time he's ever been in an Xfinity car. And he went out and won his first Xfinity race, which, I mean, that's just ridiculous. The list was very short. I think it was basically, which Dale Sr., that was the first ever race of what is now the Xfinity Series. I think there was like 3 or 4 drivers that have ever done that. Yeah, so it's like 2 goes, 7th driver to win. Yeah, and Keebler Gibbs, second youngest race winner. Won a class in Rolex, 7th driver to win his Xfinity debut. Led half the race. So, I mean, he had to. There was one instance, of course, where there was 3 guys went through the straight line, the inner loop. Connor Zilisch was one of those. I mean, you had enjoy this on your Zilisch was including Gibbs and Sammy Smith. So and so that affected Keebler Gibbs and his opportunity. But the results at Watkins Glen, Zilisch won stage 1, led the most laps, wins the race. Sheldon Creed, for the 12th time in his career, finishes second in the Xfinity Series. AJ Allmendinger 3rd. Chandler Smith 4th. Shane Van Gisbergen finishes 5th. He had a penalty. I think didn't he have a speeding penalty or something? He had some sort of penalty, I think. Or I might be mixing it up with somebody else, and he had to come back from that.
Speeding. He had some kind of pit road penalty. I think it was a speeding. It might have been. It was something that set him back, and he had to go back on pit road. But then, got close there.
And he was able to. They talked about it. I think it was like a speeding entering or something. And then they're like, "Oh, there's no way he's going to win 4 in a row." And then after all those cautions, 8 extra laps on the race distance, he almost went out and had a chance there. Ross Chastain finishes 6th. Parker Kligerman, after announcing that he will not be looking or racing full time anymore, finished 7th. Jesse Love 8th. Joey Logano 9th after starting 33rd. And then Josh Bilicki with a top 10 finish there. So credit to him. Austin Green, another solid result, 11th place for him in one of 2 3-dimensional services cars this past weekend. William Byron finished 12th. You had 21 cars on the lead lap. Last car that was on the lead lap was Cole Custer, driving a high point car. Finished 21st. Other guys that are in the points, Herbst was 13th. Allgaier finished 17th. Jeremy Clements actually got stage points in both stages. Sammy Smith 19th. Sam Mayer 20th. Ryan Sieg was the first car 1 lap down in 22nd. And that includes the likes of Keebler Gibbs. And Eric Almirola was 2 laps down. And it kind of goes from there. Mike Skeen was in that second 3-dimensional service car. It was a 4th car from Jordan Anderson Racing entered there. So nobody that failed to qualify. Yeah, Jade Buford, Kyle Keller, and Blaine Perkins Alon Day actually made the race. Wow. So yeah, you had some guys. Austin Hill finished 33rd, but doesn't matter. He's won a few races this year. So, I mean, what else can you say? I mean, he had to battle against a bunch of veteran drivers, SVG, AJ Allmendinger, to go, and a bunch of Cup guys too. But when it all was said and done, Connor Zilisch goes out and gives JRM in his debut for them a victory in that 88 car. And in terms of what the rookie battle next year, the way things are lining up, is going to be one of the best rookie battles we've had in Xfinity in a long, long time, and maybe for any of the NASCAR series in a long time.
Not only did he have to fight against all those Cup guys and SVG and AJ Allmendinger and all the rest of the regulars in the Xfinity Series, Zilisch also had to save a ton of gas throughout that last run. And I don't know how he was able to do it, because I think him and Ty Gibbs were both on the same fuel strategy, or they pitted on the same time, and we saw Gibbs just drop like a rock on one of the restarts there in the green-white checkered sequence, and then Zilisch was still able to, even after the red flag, was still able to have enough gas to get to the end and do a burnout. And if you looked at the, because I was watching this race, you look at the telemetry of what they were showing when he was braking and getting back on the gas, it just didn't look like he was, going half throttle down the straights. But I mean, he was getting out of the gas early enough, and conserving brakes and gas throughout the corners. But it seemed like he was full gas down a good part of the straights there. So that was pretty interesting how he was able to achieve that and then get all the way to the end. And I guess he knows something about fuel, or maybe the 88 had something going on inside. So, I mean, what an effort there. And obviously he learned something from the 24 hours running in sports cars, and all that stuff. So, he's been able to leverage all of that experience into this race and win the pole, win the race. So, incredible effort. And like you said, the rookie battle next year will be really good. It'll be one of the better rookie battles we've had in Xfinity in quite a few years. And, talk about him on ovals. I mean, I'd like to see how he does on ovals. He's going to get a couple starts here later in the year. And, he's got oval experience, of course, racing in the car store. He's done some late model stuff in the past. So let's see how he's able to do in a Xfinity car here on an oval. So I'm looking forward to seeing that take place. But behind him finishing this race, the battle for second, because I think they were fighting so hard because they thought that Zilisch was gonna run out of gas. Sheldon Creed, SVG, and AJ Allmendinger and everybody else was fighting so hard to be in second place, and coming into the final turn there, I looked like they were like 3 wide for second there for a brief moment, and in the top 5. So that was an insane run there for second place. Of course, Sheldon Creed once again finished second in an Xfinity race, but I mean, I guess the way that this went down, can't really complain too much about it. But still, yeah, he finished in second. So another finish there for him. But all these other guys here that were in this race, like I said, I thought SVG was finished after the penalty, but then all the cautions brought him back into it. But then he wasn't able to get to up front to go against SVG. I thought he had the fuel and tire advantage, but he was wasn't able to do that. And I think he's just trying too hard through a lot of that, trying to get around AJ Allmendinger, definitely using his tires up there, trying to get around him. And then that opened the door for other guys like Chandler Smith to finish ahead of him. But yeah, this race was definitely interesting. And I mean, the last couple of cautions there, a lot of terrible driving as well. I mean, this one had multiple green, white checkers. So, it was unfortunate that happened, but, and caused the red flag as well. But, yeah, that's how it goes sometimes in this series. But once again, I mean, road course racing and NASCAR in general, I think is pretty entertaining. But especially, we see lots of cool stuff happen at Watkins Glen, and certainly Zilisch getting his first career win in Xfinity. That's definitely a good track to get it at. And we've seen a lot of drivers end up winning in Xfinity as their first win, like Chase Elliott in the Cup Series. So, probably in a few years, we're going to see Connor Zilisch, more than likely at Trackhouse, race in the Cup Series more than likely. And so, we'll see what they're able to do. But what a debut for him in this series.
Yeah, and a sign of things to come. We've had SVG dominate road courses this year. I'm going out on a pretty strong limb and saying that Connor Zilisch might do the same thing next year. And he only gets better with time. So he's 18 and 18 years, 1 month. So it's a problem for everybody. I wonder what his number will be in odds makers' eyes for next year's championship. But I'm not saying he's going to win the championship. I think it'll be very hard for him as a rookie in NASCAR to do that, coming from the road racing background. But compared to many others who have that similar experience, I think he's more... I think there's a better chance because of who he drives for, because of the teammates he's going to have. Because there's a lot going for him. So see what happens with that. In terms of the points, Allgaier's basically got the regular season title locked up. Custer's 19 points out of Chandler Smith. Austin Hill is basically on his own, 24 points out of AJ Allmendinger, who's locked in to the playoffs along with Sheldon Creed. All those other guys there, the top 8 are all in. Parker Kligerman is plus 85. I'm not sure how that doesn't lock him in unless he doesn't finish the race or some crap, I guess, or whatever. He'd be at 86 plus 86 if he went and finished dead last. But that's, there's 37. Yeah, I'm trying to understand what the math is there. But either way, he's in a pretty good spot, Kligerman, to go and make the playoff again. And then Sammy Smith is in the cutoff, 43 points ahead of Ryan Sieg, who over the past few weeks has had a litany of issues, and that gap, I think it got pretty close and then it ballooned because of some of the issues he's had. If he's not able to go out and win on Friday night, probably he's not going to be in the playoffs, which will be a disappointment for that organization. But, I think there's some things to be said about spreading themselves too thin, and I think they're running, 4 cars? And, their lead car doesn't run top 10 every single week. And you're running 4 cars with 2 funded guys. One funded guy. Then you have 2 people who, one is his brother, and then the other one is D Burrito, so whatever. I don't know what it's the law of diminishing returns, I think there. Sammy Smith has sucked this year, but he drives for Junior Motorsports, and he's beating Bruckshot Jones, so for whatever that's worth. Bruckshot Jones has been so bad over the past couple of years, he decided to just go back to Gibbs. So he'll need a win, Bruckshot Jones, to get into the playoffs. Sam Mayer is 13th in points. Shane Van Gisbergen is 12th. They're both behind Ryan Sieg, but they're both in with their wins. So, Bruckshot Jones, Anthony Alfredo, Parker Retzloff, Josh Williams, those are some of the guys that could possibly go out there and pull a upset on Friday night. But I mean, the battle really will be between the 8 and the 39 there. The 48 trying to just get enough points and lock it up probably in the first stage. After that, some of them other battles really are over. So we'll see what happens with that on Friday night. And also, the CW starts their long-term deal with NASCAR and the Xfinity Series. They'll be borrowing Rick Allen, Burton and Letarte, and probably the road people as well to cover the rest of the series. But they will have the coverage here starting now, this week, and for the next 7 years. So being back on network TV every single week, practice, not this year, for the rest of this season. I don't think they have practice available or whatever, but qualifying will be on network TV. The races will be on network TV. So that's a good thing for the Xfinity Series for exposure. Years ago, ESPN had the whole entire Xfinity Series and then did part of the Cup Series. Ever since this recent contract, they've split it between Fox and NBC. The Truck Series is on FS1 for good, bad, or indifferent. So I think hopefully with the Xfinity, they hire the right people and they're able to go and promote these guys, because there's a lot of good talent, not just the rookies that are coming in next year, like Connor Zilisch, like Nick Sanchez, who's going to be driving the 48 car next year, like Christian Eckes, who's going to be driving the 16 for Colleague. You're going to have, of course, Allgaier, and you're going to have other veteran-type drivers and other young guns like Jesse Love. He's another one. He's only going to be in his second year in the Xfinity Series, so a lot going on there. 2025. All right, so let's move forward from there to Formula One. Oscar Piastri going out there and getting his second career Formula One win. And it was a strong race for him. I mean, it probably was. It may not be the absolute best performance, but for him. But the fact is, for all the build up for Oscar Piastri, all the kind of the controversies of how he ended up leaving Alpine, he saw this in front of him, and Mark Webber, I think, is his agent. So having someone who is a Formula One winner and has been in a big team before supporting you. Australia hasn't had a world champion since Alan Jones. Daniel Ricciardo tried, but the timing wasn't there. There's been other Aussies that have driven in Formula One, but Oscar Piastri is setting himself up as a championship contender now. This second win ties him with Lando, same amount of wins. Points wise, he's scored the most points in the last 7 races. McLaren does have the best car, so it makes sense that they're going out there and getting a victory. And he was able to go and hold off Charles Leclerc, who's great at Baku, but can't seem to win the race. That's part of the problem there. But the results for Azerbaijan, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the results will go there, and Oscar Piastri gets the win by just under 11 seconds over Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez wreck on the last lap, which gives third to Woody Russell. Norris was fourth. He finished around 5 seconds behind Russell. Fish Lips was 41 seconds behind Lando. He was trying to do a fastest lap, but the caution, the safety car came out, or whatever, the yellow flags came out, so that was thwarted. Fred Alonso finishes sixth. Alex Albon and Franco Colapinto for Williams, seventh and eighth. Lewis Hamilton, ninth, and Ollie Bierman filling in for Kevin Magnussen after his race ban. You mentioned that, Josh, with Corey LaJoie and the need to probably have better driver standards. Well, a rare instance where somebody gets suspended, Kevin Magnussen ended up having that, and Ollie Bierman was able to go and score points again. I forget where or what I read, where he's the first driver to score points for two teams in the same season. I feel like in over 20 years, I think, or probably like 20 years at least. So that's pretty good for him. Coming into F1 next year with Haas, beats his teammate Nico Hulkenberg by, I guess the times don't really matter there because of being under safety car. You had two cars are a lap down. You mentioned Checo and Carlos fell out late. So that was that. But Piastri goes out there, gets the victory, and is been continuing to improve. And we talk about these young guys, these guys that are getting first wins or first opportunities, and Oscar Piastri proving that his decision to leave Alpine was the right one, to go and join McLaren, even though last year at the start of the year they might have been the worst team on the grid. To go and get to the point where they're the best team on the grid right now, that's pretty crazy. But it takes the likes of Oscar Piastri to push a team to make the changes necessary to go and win races like they are doing right now, Josh.
Yeah, for Oscar Piastri, I mean, it's pretty crazy how he's kind of helped the turnaround. And now McLaren, of course, like you said, they were at one point one of the worst teams on the grid, and they were able to go out and pluck him from Alpine. And now, after last year, not really, having much production, and but getting better, that now this year they're able to go out and get 2 wins with both of their drivers, and kind of a good problem to have when you have 2 drivers that are capable of winning races and competing for the championships. So crazy how that kind of works now in F1, where we hadn't really seen that in a few years, but now both of them are equally capable, and that's honestly, it's a good problem to have. And maybe Piastri is actually slightly better than Norris. I think he is overall, probably, but for Piastri, good defense of his lead there at the end. Of course, Leclerc attempting late in the race to make overtakes on him, but he was able to defend multiple times going into turn 1 on the late in the race, and being able to hold on to first place, and then extending the lead eventually. That's what Piastri is able to do in this race, and shows what he's capable when he's up front for the race, and he's able to go out and take the lead and win races. So yeah, for McLaren, yeah, like I said, it's a good problem to have. But also they have the best car currently right now, so that definitely helps too. So it all kind of works to lead to this point. So, yeah, this was a really interesting race. Of course, Leclerc led laps 2 in this race, but for him, didn't win the race. Their strategy didn't really work out like it did for Piastri, and lost touch with him towards the end of the race, and then that kind of led to the moment that kind of basically ended the race under green with Carlos Sainz attempting to overtake his teammate in the last, or in the corner, and coming out on the other end and trying to. I mean, it looked like kind of Sainz and Sergio Perez both kind of merging into the same lane. That's kind of what it looked like to me. They merged into the same lane and then made contact and crashed. So, for Sainz, it looked like it was going to be at least a McLaren and then 2 Ferrari finish. But then I think Sainz got a little too greedy there, trying to overtake 2 cars in 2 corners. It would have been better to overtake Perez and then wait for the next opportunity to get around Leclerc, because I think Leclerc was losing pace at that point anyways. So I thought maybe it was a little trying to go for a little bit too much there, trying to overtake his teammate, especially going on the outside, overtaking him in a narrow corner where I think the inside line is more favorable to take in that corner. And for Sainz, didn't really work out there, because then he fell in behind Leclerc and then made contact with Perez there. So that's not how he wanted to end that race for either of those guys. And yeah, I think kind of a rare mistake by Carlos Sainz there, taking himself out, taking Sergio Perez out, who was also having a good run there. First time in a while that he has had a good race. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting finish there. And of course, the rare time where Perez is, faster and had better pace than Verstappen. Seemed like Verstappen didn't really have much to show for this weekend, of course, and finishing in 5th when really probably would have finished 7th if that wreck didn't happen. So not the best weekend, but still leading the points by a good amount still, with Lando 59 points back. So he's taking some points out of Verstappen's lead, but still a sizable lead for Verstappen. But still, Lando ends up getting 3 more points over Verstappen there. So which for him, coming from 15th to finish 4th and finish ahead, that's a pretty good deal there too. So continue on in Formula One, going into Singapore, and I mean, I think either of the McLarens, are capable of winning. So yeah, we'll see if that ends up happening, later on. So yeah, very interesting race, and yeah, Piastri comes out with the win.
Yeah, and that's and with that, McLaren goes and takes over the Constructors' Championship lead, which I'm trying to remember. It's probably 2021 was the last time that someone other than Red Bull has led the Constructors' Championship, and that was Mercedes, of course. But McLaren going out there and getting that victory with Oscar Piastri, and Lando was the fastest lap there. Yeah, so it's just they have the best driver combination. I do agree with you, Josh, in terms of Piastri's talent relative to Lando. I think Lando is more of a product of the British media. Yes, he has talent, but he's not really as good as everyone makes him out to be, same as Woody. The one British driver that we know what kind of talent and ability he has doesn't get covered the same way, of course, or treated in the same way, but 7 world championships and really 8 would say he's pretty damn good. The constructors' standings, as I mentioned, we'll go to the drivers. You mentioned the drivers with fish lips, 46 and 59 points ahead. I don't think that the championship really is in play. I have a hard time believing that, but after this coming weekend at Singapore, they essentially have a month off before they go to COTA, and they have a triple header, 2 triple headers, COTA, Mexico, and Brazil in 3 consecutive weeks. Then they have was it 20 days between the next race there, but from Brazil to Las Vegas, and they go from Vegas to Qatar and then to Abu Dhabi to end their season. So right now you have 8 races to go in the season. Mathematically, it's not impossible, but I have a hard time believing that Fish Lips is not going to get finishes and finish relatively up front to maintain that lead. Leclerc is 19 points behind Norris. Piastri with the win moves to 4th in the championship, Drivers' Championship, 32 points behind Lando. Carlos Sainz 5th. Lewis Hamilton in 6th. George Russell and Checo Perez are tied with the same amount of points in 143. Russell with the win gets a tiebreaker. Fernando Alonso and Stroll round out the top 10. He mentioned some of those things and talked about Colton Herta, talked about Franco Colapinto getting points in his second race, helping Williams out, and possibility that he might go to Audi as teammates to Nico Hulkenberg. So we'll see if that's the case. But to go and get points in his second career race is pretty good. Got more points than Logan did in his career, so in his year and plus in the Williams car. So driver standings are mentioned whenever. Then the team standings, McLaren a 20-point lead over Red Bull. Ferrari is 51 points back in 3rd of McLaren, and then that's the battle for the constructors. They're 31 points behind Red Bull. Mercedes on their own in 4th. Same for Aston Martin in 5th. You have RB and Haas are separated only by 5 points. Williams moves up to 8th, passes Alpine with that double point score. And then Slauber still hasn't scored points in 2024. So that was that. So, Josh, I'll throw to you first in regards to, or actually, I'll go first. And then Josh, you can go and close out that part with the NFL. Niners go and lose in Minnesota again. The last time they won in Minnesota was 1992. So for me, that's 32 years ago. Brian Flores, 2 years in a row, has brought out a game plan that has discombobulated Brock Purdy. I would also say that when you don't have CMC out there, Jordan Mason played solidly, but it wasn't as good as week 1. You had issues with the receivers in terms of injuries for Debo. You also had Brandon Ayuk, and the connection with him and Purdy is still ongoing to build for this year. No training camp and missing out on OTAs and the like. George Kittle in his 100th game of his career had a good game. And I would say basically Fred Warner and George Kittle were the only 2 people that showed up. Most of the rest of the team, I guess Jake Moody did, but most of the rest of the team didn't. And that makes it virtually impossible to win. That's one of the best stadiums in the whole entire country. Beautiful place, and it's hard to play in when they get loud. And the Niners, Minnesota just had a better game plan and then better execution, and that itself probably was the difference. I mean, Brock can't be automatic every single week. He had a rare off game, and so be it. But it's a good thing that they're playing the Rams in LA this coming week as a get-right game, even with all the injuries that are going on. So there are some issues on our offensive line. There is the pass rush, which has been the bane of the existence of 49ers in recent years. Hasn't been getting there, so exposing the secondary and showing that the depth is not as good as it needs to be. But, it's early in the season, week 2, divisional game, and week 3, first one of the season. We'll see what we're able to do against the Rams. In terms of fantasy teams, I think all 2 or 3 of the 4 of my teams are needs. Oh, that's not good. Too much, so Pacheco may not return until next season. Oh, that's lovely. My one team, or a couple of my teams, are 1-1, or I think 3 of my teams are 1-1, and one of my teams is 2-0. My dynasty team that I share with Vic. That one is we're 2-0 in, which is pretty interesting after how much we've struggled with that team, that we are where we are. So that's pretty cool. We'll see what happens. I said 1-1 for 3 of my teams, and then 2-0 for one of them. Go to the Fall Brawl League. I just have to go and switch my account in terms of, my Pocket Aces team won last week. Was a 3rd highest score. Josh ended up having the high score of the week. So credit to him. He'll be able to talk about it here in a moment. And then I won my other league team there, the team that I won with last year for fantasy. They won. I won in. I took the loss by 6 points or thereabouts. So we're still 4th in the division, so that's not too bad. Up front relatively early for the dynasty team. Same with my league. So we'll see what happens with that. I was trying to make some hedging with some of these teams, trying to get the kind of players I need. So that's Isaiah Pacheco going down is not great. No complications, still respect. So he won't be really an activator, but Pacheco's most fantasy down the stretch. Yeah, okay. So that news says that he's still in play. So okay. DNP has been missed multiple weeks. Part safe doesn't want to take him as like you see this week. So lovely. So I had a bunch of injuries hit, and that itself is gonna affect our viability, the viability of some of my teams. But picking up the likes of DeMarcus Robinson, hoping that he getting first team snaps now with the top 2 wide receivers at the Rams injured will make him a better play, and some of the other players that we got going on. So getting Jordan Mason on a couple of my teams, it's been pretty nifty and worthwhile. So I'll give it over to you, Josh, to go and discuss your teams and what's going on with Jacksonville early in this 2024 NFL season.
Yeah, Jacksonville's 0-2, same problems as we had last year with offensive line and being unable to rush effectively. Trevor Lawrence had a big 33-yard run on a scramble against man coverage, which is, I think, the biggest run play of the game. And then later on, Travis Etienne had a 4-yard touchdown run, but then they also had a bunch of runs that went for 1 yard or less, and then they also had a bunch of runs that were negative runs. They had many plays where Travis Etienne or I think Johnson, number 2, were tackled in the backfield there. So, and then Tank Bigsby got cracked on a kickoff return, so he didn't rush at all in this game and left with a shoulder injury, but he came back, but they didn't play him in the run game at all. So still work to be done there. Of course, Trevor Lawrence gave up a safety. They called a long pass play that could have gone for a 90-yard touchdown if the protection had held up enough, just another half second for Trevor Lawrence. But of course, porous offensive line didn't work there and everything. And then they gave up a safety. Somehow Cleveland still, even after the safety punt, they are still able to give the ball back to Jacksonville with 3 consecutive holding penalties that led to like 3rd and 34 or something like that, and led for Cleveland to punt the ball back to Jacksonville and put them, give them a last minute shot at getting it. And then Trevor Lawrence is able to get them down to the 30-yard line of Cleveland and then attempt a Hail Mary from there, and almost worked. It seemed like on TV it wasn't close, but then on the replays it looked like tight end Brenton Strange, playing for Evan Ingram, able to go in there and get a hand on the ball, but not enough to catch it. And so Jaguars fall to 0-2, which against the Browns are one of the more physical teams in the league, playing in the AFC North. I've said this last year. They play a different style of defense than most teams, I think, and for the reason they are very physical as an offensive line. That's why they were able to rush very effectively in the first half of that game. So that's how that is. Same problems, like I said, last year with the offense, and I don't know, the scheme is not correct because Jacksonville is built to be a vertical pass offense, and Jacksonville, they continue to do this horizontal stuff. Of course, offensive line isn't holding up well, which necessitates the horizontal stuff, but at the same time, they got to figure something out, and running, of course, not as effective there. So continuing the same problems as last year. So I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. They go up against Buffalo and Houston the next 2 weeks, and there's a good chance that they'll go 0-4, and by then the season will be over probably. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe Doug Peterson be fired, hopefully. So get a different coach that doesn't insist on calling his scheme because it wants it to be his scheme, which is archaic at this point. Because I think they're still trying to do what worked in 2022, and meanwhile, the NFL has evolved, and split defenses seem to be what's working now for defenses. They've countered offenses. They put lighter players in the backfield of in the middle to counteract what offenses are doing now, and they're splitting coverages. So that would actually invite running the ball. And it seems like we're getting into one of those cycles where running the ball is more effective than passing, or at least it's a choice to do, and they're not able to run as good. So we'll see what happens if they figure out against Buffalo, which they're undefeated against Buffalo in the Trevor Lawrence era. I'll give them that. So and to play in Buffalo, so which they have not won in Buffalo since 2010, but they're playing against Buffalo, which they beat them in 2023 and 2021. So we'll see what happens there. And if they're able to figure out the pass blocking and the run blocking, which in my opinion, I mean, yeah, maybe talent isn't great. They didn't upgrade enough again, but at the same time, scheme your success. And clearly they don't know how to do it. I mean, O-line play around the league is bad anyways. Like, I feel like you have complained about the 49ers O-line multiple times and stuff outside of Trent Williams. So, and even him, because I feel like he's injured a lot and he's old. So there definitely is going to be problems there. But figure out a way. I don't know why they didn't fire the offensive line coach. They fired the assistant offensive line coach, but they didn't fire the offensive line coach himself. So I don't really know why they didn't fire both of them. But they figure out a different blocking scheme or something to make things work. Because if it's gonna be like this, it's gonna be another long season. So we'll see how it goes here. But I guess there's still time. But it could unravel quickly. And I also did hear that one of their second round picks, Mason Smith from LSU, defensive tackle, was inactive, and they played some other defensive tackles in place of him in another draft pick. But apparently the new defensive coordinator thought maybe he wasn't ready and deserved less snap counts, and so Doug Peterson allegedly decided to just bench him anyways, to kind of spite Balky. So we're back to the power struggle, allegedly, with Balky versus Peterson. So back to that, of course. So we'll see how that goes the rest of the year. But maybe toxicity is more entertaining than winning and everything. So there's that. But fantasy wise, in our league, scoring the most points, which, if I can pull that up real quick, in our fantasy league, pull that up, scored a ton of points, had Aiden Hutchinson, of course, last week, so that was good, playing him. If I can pull up, which I don't like the redesign of the fantasy app for Yahoo. It's not as intuitive there, but Marvin Harrison Jr., big game on Sunday. Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, big games on Sunday. Which Jonathan Taylor, I mean, he had a great game, posting 150 rushing yards, and they still lost, which I don't know how you do that, but or actually not 150 yards. He had 100 yards on Sunday, but should have won for the Colts there. But Brian Robinson, so I swapped out Brian Robinson for Sam Laporta, because I felt like tight end production wouldn't be as good. So I put in Brian Robinson from the Washington Redskins or Commanders, so they were able to go out and get the win, which New York Giants, they only won that game because the Giants kicker pulled a hamstring and they couldn't kick extra points. They had to go for 2. And I think the Redskins, I was listening to Dale Jr.'s show and he was saying the Redskins, or the Commanders, scored all field goals. They scored 7 field goals on Sunday and still somehow won. So that's incredible. There, Geno Smith had a good game. Xavier McKinney, good game. Aiden Hutchinson, good game. Foye Lucan, decent game there. So that adds up to the highest score in our league, 239. So yeah, good game there. In my other league, won that because I have Malik Neighbors. I have Marvin Harrison in there. I have Kyler Murray as well. So that was good. And I had Laporta in there as well, but I think my flex, I'm trying to remember who's my flex. I had Amari Cooper as my flex that week, so I left some points on the board there, but I still managed to win because the guy that I was facing he's a Steelers guy, and he just wanted to play all Steelers players. So that's part of the reason. But at the same time, good to get a win, and I had a pretty good output there too. So yeah, that's good, and getting the win column for the first time this year in both of those leagues. So at least I'm winning in my football there and everything. So yeah, look forward to this week, of course, going up against Manny in our league and trying to get another win. I guess we'll go throughout the league, throughout the matchups and stuff, and hopefully we have good matchups on Sunday and Thursday and Monday. So yeah, Jags play the Bills on Monday night, so we'll see how that goes and everything. So yeah, that NFL week 2 disappointing for the actual team, but at least fantasy was able to get the job done.
Yeah, and team is solid. I mean, this league is going to be hard. Talked about it in previous weeks, so I mean, every week is going to be kind of like an eliminator. It's almost like doing the playoffs in September. So we'll see what happens with that. Getting a victory, getting into the mix, and having a good score as well is something that's positive as we move forward. I mentioned, of course, with the Niners, they'll be playing the Rams in their adopted home of SoFi Stadium, which I think they fill up just as much as they fill up Levi's. So tells you how great the home field advantage is for the LA Rams. But, we'll see what happens with that. The Rams are scuffling. They have a lot of injuries. So do the Niners. He brought up that offensive line thing outside of the left side. The center position is terrible. We've had issues on the right side. The right tackle position, I think finally with Dominic Pooney or whatever, he's the answer there, but right guard and center has been really bad for a while. Left guard and Trent. But Trent's starting to break down a little bit, like you mentioned, and for as great as he is, at some point you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do without him, knowing that you're going to pay Brock Purdy $60 million a year within the next few months. So something will have to change with that. And, the Niners' lack of addressing the offensive line over the years, the secondary has been the bane of their existence, in the sense that those two areas are the areas, as much as anything, that have been exposed by the Kansas City Chiefs in them beating the Niners in 2 Super Bowls. Even if Debo says that the Niners are the best team in the NFL, the answer, as much as I want to believe that, the hardware doesn't say that. And they get paid. All these guys get paid, but they got to show out. And when it came to that game last year, the guy that showed out on the wide receiver core group, probably by design, but Jawan Jennings had the best game of his career. And Jawan Jennings has only kept on going from that here's early this season. So something to look at as well. We need to see some of these other guys step up and actually make a difference. They all want their contracts, but you got to show out. Somebody other than Nick Bosa actually has to be able to rush the passer. Every year they talk about it. That's another thing too, but we'll see what happens. Round out time. Go to Formula 2 this past weekend. The results at Baku for the drivers: Dirksen, the sprint race winner, and Richard Veyshoor, the feature race winner in the sprint. Dirksen over Jack Crawford. Gabriele Mini making his F2 debut. Victor Martins was 4th. Gabriel Bortoleto 5th. Paul Aaron Andrea Kimi Antonelli was 7th. Christian Mansell making his F2 debut was 8th. Kushmini 9th. Zane Maloney rounding out the top 10. Enzo Fittipaldi was fast in practice, 13th. Juan Manuel Correa 15th there. So that was the sprint race. In the feature race, Richard Vachor over Victor Martins, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Bortoleto, Dirksen rounds out the top 5. Aaron Browning, Jack Crawford finished 8th. Hauger and Mansell. Fittipaldi moved up to 11th. So that was the results there. The standings. Moving on to the next. So they'll be racing. They now have a break till Qatar and Abu Dhabi, so that they'll be off for until the end of November. Bortoleto has a 4.5 point lead over Isaac Hadjar, who has now went 2 consecutive race meetings without a point. And if you go further back than that, going back to Budapest, he's only scored in 2 out of the last 8 races. Isaac Hadjar, while Bortoleto has scored in 5 consecutive, albeit a couple of them are mini, like small scores, and has 6 of the last 7 races total has scored there. Maloney up by 2 points on Aaron. Jack Crawford in 5th. Antonelli 6th. Franco Colapinto, of course, who's done for the season now that he's driving for Williams, is 7th. Martins, Hauger, Vachor round out the top 10. Kushmini 11th. Dirksen, who's gotten on a run here recently, is now 12th, tied with Enzo Fittipaldi. Ollie Bierman missed this race weekend. He's 15th. Juan Manuel Correa was 17th. And then you have some of these other guys who made their debut. Minnie Browning and Christian Mansell all made their debuts in Formula 2, so see how those guys go. In Formula 1, you got the F1 Academy coming up this weekend at Singapore, and their standings, and then after this weekend's race, they'll race at Qatar and Abu Dhabi to end the year. The Abby Pulling has a 71 point lead on Dorian Pan. Chloe Chambers in a close battle with Nerea Marti and Woog, 5 points separating those 3. We'll go through on that. Leah Block is in 14th, 6 points out of the top 10. So we'll see how she's able to do this weekend at Singapore. So the drivers are trying to go that. Red Bull, Emily DeHoos. Yeah. Going through the drivers. Leo Block. Yeah, there. All right. So we'll move forward to the WEC at Fuji last week. World Endurance Championship. Yeah, there you go. The World Endurance Championship, the season 2024 results. The race at Fuji. Trying to go the result season. The Lone Star. Yeah, so the next to last race of the season, only Bahrain left. The Results of the race at Fuji saw the Porsche Penske number 6 of Kevin Estra, Andre Lauderer, and Lawrence Vantor get the win over the BMW number 15 of Dries Vantor, Raffaele Marciello, and Marco Wittmann. Then the Alpine team number 36 of Nicolas Lapierre, Vax Vier, and Mick Schumacher rounded out the podium. Peugeot was in 4th. The Jota Sport team finished 5th and 6th. The 12 beating the 38, and Alpine, the second Alpine, the Peugeot in 8th. The first Ferrari was 9th after last race where the private Ferrari won, and then the first Toyota was 10th there. So, and top 12 were all the prototypes or hypercars. The Visit AF Corsa Ferrari of Floor, Castellacci and Rigon, David Rigon, win the GT3 LMGT3 category over the Manthey Purex Racing number 92, and then the Team WRT BMW, which is Al Harthy, Maxime Martin, and Alexander Valentino Rossi, mixing up my Rossies there. That was a podium in Fuji. So the season, the classification right now in the number 6 Porsche team leads the point standings by 35 over the Ferrari, I think number 51. Then the Toyota's 2 points behind with Kobayashi and Nick DeVries. Then the other Peugeot, Mac Wickie, Campbell Christensen, and Mike Conway tied for 4th. And Callum Ilott, Will Stevens, Brendan Hartley, Rio Hirakawa, Sebastian Buemi all tied for 7th. Per Guidi, Giovinazzi, and Collado won for Ferrari at Le Mans last year's 8th. And then Kubica, Schwartzman, and Yafei, with their win, basically doubled their whole entire point score for the whole year. They're tied for 9th. And then the Drivers' Championship manufacturers, Porsche by 10 points over Toyota. Ferrari is 27 points out. And then in Jota Sport leading AF Corsa, the Jota Sport number 12 over the AF Corsa 83. The GT3 drivers, Malkian, Sturm, and Bachler lead by 46 points. The Manthey 92 leads, that's their teammates. Then the Team WRT number 31 is 3rd. The Harder Racing 27 is 4th, and the second WRT, the 46 car, is 5th. All right, so IMSA this weekend at Indianapolis for the Corvette, of course, will be back. Peugeot, the Harder Racing team will be in GTD Pro. Okay. Van der Stur with GTD, Aston Martin. Okay. Forte Racing will be back. So lots of news for the teams that'll be in the series next year. Inception Racing, Ferrari, and Carrera Cup entry list for, that's for Michelin Pilot Challenge. That's not what I was looking for. I know, tire rack battle on the bricks, which will be a 6-hour race there. The entry list is 56 entries for the race, 11 in the prototype category. The 63 Lamborghini will come back for this race. Otherwise, all the regular players that have been around all season. Few teams running 3 drivers. In LMP2, 10 cars will be in that category. Then you have in GTD Pro, there's 13 drivers in GTD Pro, and including the second Harder Racing car with Roman DeAngelis and Mario Farnbacher this week. Then the Sun Energy 175 with Hable, Jordan Love, and not the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, and then Chaz Mostert. Then in 22 drivers for GT Daytona, or 22 teams, I mean, for GT Daytona, including the Dragon Speed team, which will be debuting their Ferrari 296 in that class. So there you go. The Iron Dames will be there. So deep field. There are 56 cars, as I mentioned, for a 6-hour race. Part of that Michelin Endurance Challenge or whatever. NHRA was at Maple Grove for the playoffs, going, and they raced there last week. The results at Maple Grove, I wanted to go, but I wasn't feeling too hot and ended up missing out. It looked like a great weekend. Antron Brown won in Top Fuel, Austin Prock in Funny Car, Aaron Stanfield in Pro Stock, and Hector Arana Jr. In Pro Stock Motorcycle. So, and Angel Sampey actually won in Top Alcohol Dragster. So credit to her there. Phil Burkhart, wow. Nostalgia, Top Alcohol, Funny Car. Okay. The Antron Brown beat Sean Langdon in the final for Top Fuel. Jack Beckman lost to teammate Austin Prock in an all John Force Racing final. Aaron Stanfield beat his teammate Eric Anders. Killed her on the tree, so couldn't happen to a nicer person. And then Hector Arana Jr. actually beat Richard Gadsden for the Wally there. So that's a slight upset in that class. The standings heading to Charlotte, in Top Fuel, Antron Brown's only a point back of Justin Ashley, Sean Langdon -6. Doug Coletta's 33 points back in 4th. And Steve Torrance in 5th, -58 off the lead. Tony Stewart is 7th, -94. He's 7th out of the 12 that made it into the playoff. Austin Prock has an 86-point lead on Bob Tasca and a 99-point lead on the John Force Jack Beckman peak car. 127 over J.R. Todd, 137 over Matt Hagan, 142 Ron Capps. Going all the way back to 13th. That's how many cars they have there. 13 cars also in the Pro Stock category. Stanfield with a 9-point lead over Dallas Glenn. Eric Anders is -35. Greg Anderson -46. And that's really a battle there. Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera has a 17-point lead on Matt Smith and a 19-point lead on his teammate Richard Gadsden. And then Hector Arana Jr.'s -60. Chase Van Zandt, John Hall inside of 100 points right now. Only 10 riders made the playoff in Pro Stock Motorcycle. The Indy Next finale was at Nashville. Of course, they had Louis Foster won the championship, had already locked that up prior to the race weekend at Nashville. Foster, with 8 wins and 6 poles, gets the championship by 22 points over Jacob Abel. Caio Collet was third. Callum Hedge, Salvador D'Alba round out the top 5. Jamie Chadwick finished 7th in points. Yuvan Sundaramurthy finished 8th. You had Bryce Aaron, Reese Gold round out the top 10. Miles Rowe just outside there in 11th. And then the rest of the people, you had, of course, Siegel, who bailed out of the championship once he got an IndyCar ride. Lindsay Brewer got fired because she sucked. Taylor Ferns, a sprint car driver. Jagger Jones, who ran out of money. Josh Mason, a British guy. Wow, okay. So that was the field for the Indy Lights Series, and then the schedule, going back and seeing who at Nashville, Louis Foster finishing the season with a victory over Yuvan Sundaramurthy, Caio Collet, the podium row, D'Alba, Michael D'Orlando, Bryce Aaron, Jacob Abel, Christian Brooks, and Josh Pearson rounding out the top 10. Miles Rowe finished 3 laps down in 14th. Jamie Chadwick had contact, finished 17th. And Taylor Ferns only ran 12 laps in the race on Sunday, so unfortunate for her for the Indy Lights Series. So we'll see who's going where for next year, if Louis Foster gets an IndyCar ride or Jacob Abel does. We'll see if some of those guys are able to get a call up. The Supercars Sandown 500, the first Enduro of 2024, and then the results, so season results, so the winner of the Sandown 500 was Will Brown and Scott Pye over their teammates Brock Feeney and Jamie Whincup. And third was James Golding and David Russell. The first Ford was the Penrite Racing number 19 with Matt Payne and Goff Tanda. Craig Lowndes and Cooper Murray in the super cheap 888 car. So 3 of the 888 cars finished in the top 5. Waters and James Moffitt, Chaz Mostert, Lee Holdsworth. The Camaros, there were only 3 Fords in the top 12. Most of the Fords then were buried. You had some of the issues that are going on there. So that's the results. So season of the driver standings, Will Brown with the win increases his points lead, has a nearly 200-point lead on Chaz Mostert. Brock Feeney is 222 points back in third. Cam Waters, Matthew Payne, the top 5. Golding in sixth. Percat, Thomas Randall, Will Davison, Anton De Pasquale. The news has come up. Of course, Toyota with the Supra will be in supercars starting in 2026. One of the teams they'll be working with is Waukesha Andretti United. So that'll be a solid team. You'll get Chaz Mostert in the process, who's driven in for multiple manufacturers and driven over here in the U.S. and category like for Supra, blah blah blah, with teams and drivers. Will field with Walkinshaw. 2 will be run for and Ryan Wood, who can be third major brand after Holden and Ford. Second team is announced, and so that'll be cool to see. Toyota, of course, has had mixed, history. They've been in NASCAR since 2007 and had their moments where they've dominated, and then other moments where they've looked lost. They went out of IndyCar. They went out of Formula One. They're in, drifting, in rallying and a lot of those kind of series. They're in sports cars. They're in Japanese Super GT, things like that. So Toyota, of course, is involved in the NHRA as well. So they're all over the place, really. So we'll see how that works. But getting Walkinshaw and Andretti United is a big get for them. World Superbikes, I'll actually start with WSBK. For championship, Gatlioka ruled out of Cremona. Oh wow! So new tracks, So where it all began, next champion for Balega. So it's a big opportunity for Nicolo Balega to go and gain points, because of not just in super polls but also in the regular standings. He's 55 points behind Gatlioka, so big opportunity there. Bautista and Alex Lowe's third and fourth, only separated by 8 points. Danilo Petrucci fifth. Andrea Locatelli, Van der Mark, and Gardner ninth, and Garrett Gerloff rounds out the top 10 there. So we'll see how that all goes. A lot of subs, new circuit for the Italian World Superbike race at the Cremona circuit there. So new circuit. So we'll see how the closest is Milan. So the World or MotoGP will go their second race at Circuit Marco Simoncelli in a few weeks. Misano, they were there 2 weeks ago. They'll go from this race at Misano and then go out to Indonesia, and then they'll end that run with Motegi, Twin Ring Motegi. So 3 races in a row. Then they'll have a couple of weeks off. They'll race Phillip Island, Thailand, and Malaysia. And then they'll have 2 weeks off to end the season. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 races to go after this weekend. The standings, of course, for the MotoGP have Jorge Martin up by 7 points on Pecco Bagnaia. Marc Marquez 9 points out of Enea Bastianini. Then Brad Binder is 9 points out of Pedro Acosta, who's going to win Rookie of the Year. Then Vinales, DG Antonio, Ali Espargaro, and Alex Marquez rounding out your top 10. Yeah, what is it, 27 riders that have at least attempted one race so far in 2024. In Moto, go to Moto 2. I'm trying to go, so there's that. Trying to get the results and standings. Grand Prix, so standings. 2024. Not yet. So in Moto 2, Ayagura 9 points out of Sergio Garcia. Joe Roberts is in third, tied with Alonso Lopez, and 3 points out of Jake Dixon. You'll see what he can do this weekend in the second race at Misano. Okay, that is it for the roundup. Let us move to the Singapore Grand Prix this week for Formula One. Josh, you made the pick first last week, so I'll go first here this week. So F1 Singapore Grand Prix. Phil is going to go with I'm going to go with Oscar Piastri again to go 2 in a row. And the podium will be Piastri. I'm going to say Norris. Well, if Piastri's up front, that's the thing. They actually have team orders now. But Piastri to win, Norris, and Leclerc, my podium for Singapore. How about you, Josh?
I'm going to go with, I'll say Lando Norris wins this week, and Piastri finishes in second, and then I'm going to go with Leclerc in third.
Okay, so swapped around the McLaren drivers.
Yeah.
And we'll see what some of these other teams bring to the table, and some of these other drivers, Mercedes, and of course Red Bull. Specifically, this was the only race last year that Red Bull didn't win, so that was when Fishlips didn't win that race. So we'll see what happens this weekend. The Truck Series will be back at Bristol on Thursday. The UNO H200. They'll have 38 for 36 so 2 trucks will go home. Mondique, whoever that is for Youngs, has El Bandito Tequila. William Sawalich will be in the 1. Marco Andretti on the 04. Connor Zilisch in the 7. Go through some of that. Keith McGee in the 22. Connor Mozak in the 41. Got trying to look through Tamil or Connor Jones in the 66. Stephen Parsons in the 75 for a home game for Henderson Motorsports. The 81 is I forget. 81 is going to be Corey Day, the sprint car driver, driving for McAnally, Hilgeman. You got Maggio, and then Tomasi, whoever they are, or Tyler Tomasi. So for me, or you went first or went second there with Formula One, Josh. So what are your pick for the Truck Series?
I'm just going to go with Corey Heim in the Truck Series to win. And we got plenty of choices here in the wild card this week with a lot of new guys showing up. So I'm going to go with Zilisch as a wild card, which Truck Series, he's on an oval, and when he was at Richmond, ran, I think, in the top half of the top 15. So, in the top half of the teens. So I'm going to go with him as my wild card.
All right. And with that, I'll go and take Christian Eckes then as my choice for the Truck Series. Christian Eckes to win, since him and Heim have been the two best drivers all year. My wild card selection will be since you went with a road racer, I'll go with a road racer. I'll go with Connor Mozak as my pick. Wild card. Did I spell their name? Yeah, Connor, the two ends. Both of them have two ends. Okay. So those are our picks for the Truck Series. On the Xfinity side, you have one car will miss the show there. Trying to see. Logan Bearden will be in the AM Racing 15. Joe Graff in the 19 for Gibbs. Ryan Truex in the 20 for Gibbs. Jeffrey Earnhardt in the 26 for Sam Hunt. Austin Green will be making an oval start in the 32 for Jordan Anderson. Carson Ware will be in the 35 for Joey Gase. Garrett Smithley in the 53 for Joey Gase. Dawson Graham will be in the 74 for Harmon. Dale Jr., of course, will be in his making his one start for the year. Josh has said that it's possible, and I guess Junior's also hinted at it, that it might be his last start. And what a time to get it, because you're one of your rookie driver that'll be in that car next year won last week. So got those guys, Van Alsten, yeah. So alrighty, so I picked that. So then for Xfinity Series, I don't think anything changes. I don't think a new winner comes out. Bristol this weekend. I am going to go with Justin Allgaier winning the regular season championship in style with a win at Bristol and get regular season title, along with the wild card selection. I am going to choose. I'll just choose Austin Green because I'm a fan of his. He doesn't obviously have a ton of oval experience, so why not? They're a solid team. Jordan Anderson Racing. They've shown it at times, so why not give Austin Green, who comes from the pedigree of his dad being former Busch Series champion David Green, his uncle Jeff being a former Busch Series champion, and Uncle Mark, who ran many years in Xfinity. So, Josh, you get the next choices. So what about you for the Xfinity Series?
First of all, I'll say that I also don't think that anything's going to change in the standings for the playoff field. And I mean, it's hard to say that Justin Allgaier wouldn't win the regular season title, so I'll say they win the regular season title, but I'll just go with Cole Custer to win here in this race. And then, of course, I'm going to pick my guy, Dale Jr. as the wild card, which, like you said, this might be the last one for him in Xfinity. We'll see what he feels like after this, what he decides to do. Of course, he'll still drive the Sundrop car in late models for the next few years, but this might be the last one Xfinity, so we'll see.
Yeah, and that would be an emotional thing if he does make that decision. It'd be a shame. It's not like he's got a whole lot of TV to do anymore. Not this year, and then not until the Coca-Cola 600 next May. So
yeah,
That would be a bummer to see Junior fully stop, but we will see how that goes. Now it's the Bristol night race for Cup. You have the picks for win and wild card, but who gets eliminated in the playoffs too, Josh? You get first dibs on that.
This is going to be wild here. Oh, man. We're going to choose violence here, but we'll see. Well, I mean, I think we'll go bottom up. Let's do it that way, because that's probably the easy way to say who gets eliminated. But I think Harrison Burton gets eliminated. I think it's an easy choice right there. Martin Truex, I think he's out. Brad Keselowski, I think he's out. And so that leaves the last spot here to get eliminated. I'm going to say that Denny Hamlin makes it, and I think I'm going to say Denny Hamlin wins this race. I'll say he wins to get in, and Ty Gibbs, I'm going to say that Ty Gibbs falls out. I don't know. I think he's just not in secure enough ground. Chase Briscoe, I mean, it's give or take for Chase Briscoe, but I think he somehow is able to pull out a finish here that's moves him on into the next round of the playoffs here. And so Denny Hamlin, I'll say, wins the race. He won at Bristol in spring, of course, beat everybody's favorite driver, and maybe he goes for the sweep here and wins at here at Bristol. So yeah, which would be a wild way, because I don't know what his approach has been in this playoffs here. You know, the first one was like, oh, I need 20 points, and gets wrecked, and then, you know, gets wrecked on lap one, and they're still able to pull out a good finish out of that somehow, but you know, obviously their chances got destroyed by the first lap wreck there for Hamlin. So we'll see if he's able to basically lift himself out of the cellar here in this one. So that leaves the wild card, of course, for me, which I need to pull that up here. Entry list, that's the Xfinity Series entry list. The Bass Pro Shops night race entry list here. I'm gonna go with Josh Berry. He had a good finish here. I think he finished I think he was competing there in that race in the spring. So, and I think this is a track that he can do really good on. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Berry here.
As long as somebody doesn't try to take him out for some of the rough driving he's shown in recent weeks, especially at Darlington, that is a solid choice there, Josh. Tennessee driver, so that would be big for him if he can have a big run at the Bristol night race. I did the entry list. My pick to win, and it's not based on recent form, but I'm going to go and say Ryan Blaney gets the victory on Saturday night and solidifies himself in yeah, I didn't edit. I need to edit that. So there. So Josh is so Bill says YRB to win, and my wild card for this weekend's race. Why not? I'm going to go with Carson Osavar. He's on a kind of a heater right now. Good momentum after a top 5 run at Watkins Glen. He's good at Bristol. I think they ran decent there last year. So Osavar wild card. Drivers out. Burton definitely. I think Martin Truex Jr., MTJ, Brad K, and then the last person you said that Hamlin wins to make it in. I'm gonna go and you go and say that Hamlin actually stays out. He ends up not making it, which would be a huge shocker, and miss the next round. And that has happened. Joey Logano, what was it, last year, I think, or a couple of years ago, got knocked out after getting wrecked in this race. So it's not, there's no special dispensation here. If you can't get through the night race, it's probably going to affect you points-wise. So I think that was what happened with Bristol in recent past. So we'll see what happens with the results here on Saturday night. So with that, Josh, we'll move over to your sim segment. Let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and gaming.
Yeah, of course. iRacing side, did some road racing in the GT4 class at IMS Road Course, and ran pretty well in the one that I did last night. There was another one that I did, I think, on Sunday night or Monday night that I ran. I thought it was running good, and then I got cleaned out going into turn one, and then ended up finishing, I don't know, in like 22nd or something like that. So that one, I was a little bit irritated at that. So that was a little bad run there. Then I did some multi-class racing in the rain and Okayama Speedway or Raceway. So that was a good effort there. I think I won in class in one of those races. So pretty good there. Of course, trying to improve the road racing, kind of my goal this year on there. And mostly doing the GT4 sports car challenge there. So doing that. Ran some Xfinity and Cup at Watkins Glen doing that. But didn't really run too well in that. Just the intricacies of running road racing on the Cup car. It's easier, but there's definitely a lot of it's definitely a very sensitive car, and the Xfinity car is also fairly sensitive, so struggled there a little bit, but that's all right and everything. But also ran the IndyCar at Nashville, so ran that, of course, and finished 6th and 9th in my attempts there in the IndyCar, so Nashville, which that was a pretty fun one there too as well, running that. But yeah, that's what I did last week in sim racing, of course. News-wise, the Open Wheels 500 is back later in the year. I think November 8th is the date that's happening. So don't know yet if I'll be able to do it. I know it was super competitive, of course, when I did it and everything. There's only so many people that will be able to attempt that. Of course, that's, a lot of people online and going for 33 spots in that one. So would be a opportunity if I'm able to prepare for that and put in the work to be able to compete. So we'll see if I'm able to do that. I have to look at my schedule and see if I'm able to participate in the qualifying, of course, and the practice rounds and all that to get ready. But of course, one of the premier private events in sim racing in the IndyCar community on iRacing, and running a very true to form version of the Indianapolis 500 on iRacing. So that would definitely be a fun event, regardless of being able to compete in it or not. But other people that are able to, top people in IndyCar on iRacing, being able to run in that, if you're able to win in that, of course, you're definitely up there in ranks of iRacing competition there. So got that. And of course, 6 hours of iRacing at Indy is also, I think, this weekend, or maybe it was last weekend. I got to look at it, but that was also on the table there. I guess they're doing the special event for the Bristol night race on iRacing, so that's there too. And then also they've been giving away some codes for the World of Outlaws 2024 release. So Dale Jr. has been tweeting those out lately for PlayStation and Xbox. So actually wasn't able to catch those because I wasn't home when those tweets were going off for the codes. So I don't know if they'll still work, but I mean, if they do, good for you if you're able to get that. But that game is out now too, so might have to get it, or might get the other World of Outlaws game to try it out and kind of get a taste of what iRacing is producing, because they produced that game, and what they're going to be producing for the NASCAR 25 game that'll come out next year. So be interesting to see how that works. So a lot of stuff happening in sim racing, of course, with all that, and being able to run all that. So of course, when stream, of course, at USailor2 on Twitch, go in there and follow on there. And then of course, Twitter, JP Huffine, which football season back and everything, tweeting on there as well. And then of course, our page on here at YouTube on Group Share Podcast. So go in there and follow and subscribe to our page, and share the page, and listen, watch, or whatever with the show. So that's it for me, of course. And hopefully have a good result here this weekend for all the racing that we see, and hopefully we are entertained and we see a good race in the Cup race, and we'll see what this playoff field looks like in a week from now when we talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. And it's always great for us to go and do this, being able to work around needing to move it. So that's also good. And glad that you're always amiable. Wouldn't want to do the show without you. So it's always great and your perspective, Josh. So thank you as always for that. And for me, you can find me PG Matthew 28 on Twitter, PGM GSP or MGP GSP 28 on Insta. You can find us at Gripster Pod on Twitter. Find the Gripster Podcast at philipgmatthew.com. We share our podcast, the site for Podbean, where our host site, and basically anywhere you listen to podcasts, so like Google, Amazon, et cetera, the Gripster Podcast is there. So we hope you listen, hope you subscribe, tell your friends about it. We'll be back next week for episode 238, recapping week 3 of the NFL, recapping all the racing and a busy weekend in the world of racing, Bristol, Singapore, and NHRA, IMSA, F1 Academy, and lots of motorcycle racing. We'll talk about it all here on the Gripster Podcast. So for Josh and Phil, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.